Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, to the Committee on General and Housing. It's Tuesday, February 3, and we are now going to have committee discussion and markup of H 757. That's the manufactured homes bill. Just to bring you up to speed, Cameron, we did have testimony with Chris Delia, who testified basically in support of the bill. Everyone, please tell me if I mischaracterize anything. And we also heard Laura Gorski, who's an attorney practicing in this area, doing a lot of about 20% of her title practice or her real estate practice. She was basically supportive of the bill. That she generally felt, I think, well, first of all, she felt that she noted this appearance of contradiction between 2603, which allowed either a bill of sale or a deed, and 2604. I told her that we had 2604 language addressing that issue. She also told us that basically she felt that still, and she's supportive of that, definitely. She thinks that many low-income tenants are going to want a personal loan, and that personal loans could be gotten at a very competitive rate. She now less than 6%, 20 years or 15 years, et cetera. She did feel, I think, she felt that she reiterated what we've heard, that the conversion process was very, people didn't understand it, purging conversion, it was expensive and nobody understood it. I told her we'd pretty much removed it. And she did have two interesting points. I don't know whether we're going to want to do anything about it. It's up to the committee whether we do. One was she mentioned that the 2020 Enhanced Life Estate Act, which allows homes, regular stick-built homes, to be transferred to heirs via a life estate in some way. I've said more than I know already, that it doesn't apply to mobile homes. It's Title 27, Chapter 6. I don't know if that's something we want to try to fix in this round, but I'm just alerting you to it. The other thing she said is that she did reiterate something we've heard in other testimony, that every place she goes, clerks tend to do it differently. What they record and where they record it. Some of them, a lot of them do it separately in a separate notebook or a separate envelope. And she thinks that it would be really useful if we tried to give some sort of instruction to regularize the process so that we didn't have variations from town to town. I asked her whether she actually would propose language or whether she wanted to create a process involving the town clerks so as to define what we should do and socialize it. She tended to prefer the latter, although if she came up with language, she'd say basically that they should report it. They should record all the documents in the land records and not in some separate process. So that's just bringing you up to speed on what we heard.
On the last, for the record, Cameron Wood, Office of Legislative Counsel, the last piece, if you're talking about, and I was able to listen to some of what she said, not all of it. If you as a committee, she happens to be listening. My understanding is there is a comprehensive omnibus bill that is in House Government Operations that is attempting to standardize and bring consistency to how land records are recorded. And so I understand her desire to want to bring some direction and consistency, if you will, in that. I would just, highlight for you all that may be a much larger, broader conversation that my understanding is House Government Operations is, yeah, I don't know if they're intending to have this session, but could be a much broader topic when you're talking about recording of records. Because it wouldn't just be these records, right? So what I can do is, I believe, and I was trying to pull it up, I just don't recall the bill name, the bill number off the top of my head. I believe that that bill number may actually have some amendments to these sections. It really just identifies using some consistent language about recording in the land records and indexing in the general index. So it wouldn't really, I don't know to what extent if she would be looking for more guidance or information, but I can take a look at it and see about incorporating at least that piece over if it's introduced in a separate bill, if you all would like that.
Yes,
Just very quickly, thank you. Just very quickly, can you, because in 2022, we passed the Modernization Act that required, I believe, at least records to become to include electronic versions or can be converted into electronic versions over some series of deadlines that I have no idea what those are, where we are in them. And I just wondered how that sort of, the bill that you're talking about might fit in with that. When you're looking through all of that, would you mind?
You said this was in 2022?
Yeah.
And it was a modernization of land records.
Town Records Modernization Act.
Yeah.
I can take a look and it would, if you want to talk to one of the attorneys in our office, I assume Tucker Anderson would be the best person to ask, but I can at least ask him, grab that, and take a look at what some of those.
I just wondered whether they knit together, that's all.
Well, and I do think it's worth just telling Tucker, what if we, what if we wanted to dovetail with what they're doing over in GovOps, add a little bit, or, is that possible at this point? Okay,
Yeah, and I think, at a minimum, I guess I would say each way, it may be worth a conversation with the members of that committee. I don't know to what extent they're intending to move that bill or not. That bill is pretty comprehensive. It's amending, I worked on it, a piece of it, and again, I was trying to pull up and see whether it actually amends some of these sections already. If it does, just grabbing those and incorporating them would be easy to do. My assumption is it would mean that bill would go to that committee at that point, possibility. I just don't know, that bill touched on 4 or 5 different titles.
well, my bias, just to say it, is I don't want to overcomplicate the path of this bill. This bill already is going to have to go. Well, I'm not sure. Does this have an appropriation in it? No. There's no appropriation in this bill, right?
I don't recall.
think
I
so.
cannot recall there being an appropriation.
There is.
There's no.
So it doesn't have to go. And there's not it's gonna have to go to Ways and Means because of the tax provisions. It doesn't have to go to approach.
Stormwater?
The stormwater, it's gonna have to go to environment. So that's one reason I wanted to get it out of here when we could, if people are willing, because it's got a path. And I would like to avoid GovOps having to take possession of it. So I think unless there's something we could do, and it's one thing I could talk with the committee's permission, I could talk with the chair of GovOps and just ask him, tell him what the issue is and see if they have any interest in addressing it in their bill and just leave it in their bill. Yeah.
Or if their bill gets through, we could amend it.
If their bill gets through where?
If they take it off the wall and
If
get
they
it out of
don't
it.
get, yeah.
Well, then we'd have to take possession of it.
No, well, on the floor, you mean?
A floor amendment.
A floor
Yeah,
Yeah, if it was friendly, yeah. Although presumably Okay, but that,
She said.
Because always works.
Well, we don't even know whether they're gonna take it up, is
Yeah.
the thing.
yeah, I gotta
It's
find
all,
out.
it's just
Is
another
it
all
okay?
pie in the
Is it
sky.
okay if I try to find out and report back? Okay, I'll just find out where we are on that. Go ahead. So we're talking about markup. How do you want to proceed, sir?
Totally up to you. What I have as of the last time we spoke, the two pieces that I recall were amending the section in the limited equity cooperatives section to remove the reference of limited equity cooperatives shall be treated as nonprofits. I gotta reach out to the Secretary of State's office to talk with Mr. Hall again about incorporating some language about cleaning up the Secretary of State's office direction to accurately reflect how those organizations are structured in their system. I have to go in and I've already started to highlight or identify the areas where you wanted to narrow down from limited equity cooperative to ensure that we're only impacting manufactured home communities that are limited equity cooperatives. I believe there's just two instances of doing that where there's the rent limitation. It's my recollection in the LEC section where it's saying for these entities that are created after a certain date, that their ability to sublet those units would be based on a hardship. That would be limiting that to manufactured housing communities that are LECs, and then the stormwater piece. The stormwater piece was all limited equity cooperatives, and so if you want to narrow that down, I have to make that amendment. I believe the tax piece of the amendment is already, it's already limited there. So those are the two amendments that we've spoken about as a committee. And then I have some other changes that have been proposed that have come to me, Mr. Chair, via email. So I just need to review those. So other than that, just if there's anything that you as a committee want to put on the record for amending or asking me to address, that may be the best.
Maybe what I should do is tell the committee the 2 or 3 items that have come up even as late as this weekend that I've given council to look at and think about and reflect back to us. They're pretty technical, but they're important. If you look at,
Can we put up sorry, just so we can follow along, if you're gonna go into language in the,
I am.
would somebody be able to share the document?
Just want the bill up.
Yeah, if you don't mind, and just so that you can scroll down to the parts that relevant. Yeah, just so we all,
where is it? 26. Where is 2603 and 4?
in the front. Are you running through?
2604 is on page 3, 2603 is not the amendment, so I can pull that statutory section up.
Okay. 2604 and 2603.
Because we had talked about changing this before.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, if you look at 2604, we don't have to put up 2603. But do you have a way of putting up the suggested amendment that Ed prepared, or do you want me to? I can just read it. It doesn't have to. What happened was, if you look at 2604 on page 3, all we did for 2604, we took out references. It used to say substantially in the form, and then they have the whole proposed deed in it. And the testimony we got was, nobody uses this. It's a pain. Take it out. So we did. Got to make it bigger. 2603, which isn't in here, is the bill that you heard about, is the part that you heard about today. That says for mobile homes, for manufactured homes. Here we go. 2603. This is the one where pursuant to various bankers, including Chris Delia, we left alone. You see where it says B, a mobile home that is intended as a permanently sited,
When you own that land.
owned by the owner, it's financed as a residential real estate. Leased by the owner, it may be financed, okay? We left that alone so that we can bill of sale. The point that was made to us was that 2604 is somewhat contradictory to this because it implies that you have to do it by warranty deed.
It's really here in B, so this is in 2604, we have subdivision A, which says that after July 1, 2008. If it's financed as real estate, then the dealer has to convey it via a deed.
Right.
But then in B, it talks about, so here it says an owner of a mobile home shall, upon financing or refinancing as residential real estate. And then here they have to issue either a warranty deed or a quitclaim deed. My understanding is that's the issue.
Yeah, what we've done, we received input where, I'm just trying to pull it up, hold on a minute. To modify 2604, to allow either a bill of sale or a warranty deed. That's all. And there's two different people who have given us two draft languages, and I forwarded both to council. And he will look at it and evaluate it, which he prefers, and then bring it back to us. It's just it's more flexibility. That's one change. I'm just summarizing what's happened. The other is the secretary. Remember, the Secretary of State was in here. Again, with really technical sort of hybrid of real estate and tax. And saying, I'm willing to go back and sort of right now, since 2604, since 2024, we have a new computer system. And every time we newly register a limited equity co-op mobile home community, it's registered that way. And we said, can you go back and sort of scrub the past where some communities are listed as for-profit corporations? And he said, yes, we can do that. But we agreed that it would be voluntary because some communities somehow got nonprofit status and they might want to keep it. So you're working on language to that effect. But there is a more substantive part, which is the reason that all of this matters, if at all, is because a whole bunch of state grants to mobile home parks or manufactured home parks, they
dismiss you if you're not.
they require proof. They require proof that they require rather difficult proofs, which you can give, but a shortcut is if you're treated as a nonprofit, they just accept that. So I proposed language, which I sent to council, that essentially would say it wouldn't order the Secretary of State how the Secretary to change the way they register these things. It just said for all purposes of state grants or loans that are made to manufactured home communities, they should be treated as if they were registered as a nonprofit.
In other words, if you're registered as limited equity
Equity co-op,
corporation.
yeah.
You should be treated the way that they currently somehow only treat nonprofit
Right, yeah.
registrations.
And I sent it to, what's the guy's name? Josh
Jeremiah.
who testified here, and he said, yeah, that would work. And so I sent it, after that, I sent it to council. It just means, I'm trying to find the language, but go ahead. And Joe, did you want to?
Yeah,
Oh, Gail.
Well, I have two questions about the definition. On the first page, it should also distinguish mobile home community, LECs, and it only says cooperative in the subject matter.
You're where?
First page,
What line?
line 5, line 6, and line 13.
An act relating to manufactured homes and limited equity cooperatives.
you're all the way up here in the section, which I would say is the subject pieces are for our internal office purposes. So that's something that we put in there to make sure that we can group like-minded, I mean, it's for the public's consumption also. But
That's why it has to distinguish that it's not just cooperatives or LECs. It's manufactured home communities that are organized as an LEC.
so like, there's no value or anything to do to change those subjects at this point. The subject is in reference to the bill as it's introduced. It is, again, it's for our purposes internally. It's for the public as well. So if a member of the public wanted to pull the bill up and say, well, what's this bill about? Instead of reading the whole bill, they can look at the subjects, they can look at the statement of purpose. That's why our office puts them in there. The subject doesn't go into statute. It doesn't move with the bill. And that's all I'm saying. It's like, if you amend the bill, the subject comes out, the statement of purpose comes out as this committee amends it. And then as it moves into another committee, they'll never see that again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my other question is, when the mobile home is considered chattel property, personal property, it's almost impossible to get refinanced. That was the whole impetus of trying to make it consistent, because they have to rely on grants and they have to rely on whatever subsidies to repair the home if it falls into disrepair, because they can't get refinanced. So if we're just keeping it a bill of sale,
Or
Or-
either or, yeah.
that's still going to have that particular problem.
Well, we heard testimony today that personal property loans are available for either resale or for sale from Gorski. She said that it didn't matter, she said that 6.99% or 5.99% money was readily available for personal
Purchasing.
loans, evidenced by a bill of sale for either purchasing a new home or for resale, purchasing a used home.
But isn't that different than refinancing? If you already own a home and you're trying to refinance to,
To do something,
yeah,
and you're saying you can get a purchase money mortgage, but you can't get a refi if it's.
you
we,
can get, I don't know what anybody's ever tried to do other than try to get refinanced.
that's an issue we haven't dealt with, and I don't know if we can.
That,
Just get a new personal property loan, bam, they loan. So you
They can get, you'd have to get a personal property loan, I guess. However, the proposal by Eastrise and their attorney, and also by another witness, Horace, that I just mentioned to amend 2604, would, just at the end of my knowledge here, it would allow a real estate loan to be evidenced by either a bill of sale or a deed, which might help. For the information of the committee, what I sent, the language that I proposed to council to try to deal with the problem of grantors, state grantors who don't, they only lend under limited circumstances and you have all this stuff you have to prove. It's the testifier who is Joshua. What's Joshua associated with?
Jeremiah,
Jeremiah,
CDI.
CDI. CDI is
Institute, Development Institute.
Institute. He said the designation can make a difference when determining a co-op eligibility, a manufactured home community eligibility for grant and low interest loans funding, given that funders sometimes use a state Secretary of State nonprofit status as a proxy for certifying that the entity is a public purpose or public benefit, that it is non-extractive ownership. So I proposed the following language, which I sent to council. And this is just me at this point. It's the committee that has to decide this eventually. But this is what I sent to council. Notwithstanding any law to the contrary, mobile home community organized as a cooperative housing, corporation, limited equity cooperative, shall be treated for all purposes of eligibility for any grant or loan by a state agency or instrumentality of the state as if it were incorporated as a state nonprofit corporation for a public purpose and public benefit under the laws of the state. And this guy, Jeremiah said, yeah, that would work. Now, council will tell us whether, in addition to working, it's legal eventually. I'm just trying to go through the things that have changed. To my knowledge, that proposal, the amendment of 2604, the Secretary of State Grubb, and the definition of limited equity co-ops to mean organized as a manufactured home community. Those are the four things that we've got.
What about S34? We talked about that verbally, mobile home lot rents.
Oh, right. But wait, first of all, yes.
Is it necessary to use the word chattel? And is there a way to avoid the use of the word chattel?
It's not mentioned in the bill. Say that.
Do you think it's historically related to slavery?
Yes, and I think I can only speak for myself, but I'm quite sure that I'm not the only person. But it is extremely jarring to me every single time I hear that word, and I can't really hear what comes afterwards. And I wondered whether there was a way to avoid using that word and codifying the use of that word.
I will make my best attempt to not use it.
We don't use
I can't speak.
We don't use it in here, but it's really, I gotta tell you, it's like so many things. I never thought of it until this instant in time. And I certainly think there's plenty of ways to talk about it. It's a personal loan.
But it has been brought into this room many times in the last
It is
couple of weeks,
it
and
is a legal term.
It's a legal term of a lot of them.
but and so is blight,
It's
and
not-
yet we don't have to use the word blight either.
It's not. Yeah. It is commonly used, so.
Thank you.
There is one other, that's right, which we have not dealt with here. The Senate bill, there is a Senate omnibus bill coming out of Senator Parsons' committee. It's the Senate bill is a committee bill that has a great, all. One of the things in it is a provision which would limit increases in rent in a mobile home park annually to CPI plus 1%. Now, in discussions, so Senator Clarkson sent it over and said, would you be willing to put it in your bill? Because she recognizes that her bill is a little too, perhaps, is very omnibus. It has everything under the sun in it, and she would like to reduce what's in it. So she asked if we would take this. Just as a technicality, Gail and I discussed it and realized that, first of all, it wouldn't work for limited equity co-ops that are mobile home communities because they are already, by their terms of the law and their own organizing documents, what do you call them? Their articles of association, which have to be consistent with the law, limit increases to the amount of actual increases in cost plus 10%. And Gail tells us that those increases are less than CPI plus 1%. Also, it would not apply to state-owned because they are covered by other elements of state laws that they're limited. So it would only apply to privately owned mobile home communities. And the question is, would you like to see that? And how do you feel about it? Yes.
No. I'll bring it up also when we talk about the landlord tenant bill. I have a concern about rent caps when the state continues to raise property increases. And if someone doesn't have a mortgage on a building, if that's paid off, these continuous property tax increases are their rent increases. So, I mean, if the rent cap is going to match the cap of whatever property tax increase, yeah, I'll support it. But I have concerns about about rent caps.
Well, what if we were to actually mirror what's required of limited equity co-op organized as mobile home, as manufactured home communities for the private sector, which would mean cost plus 10%. Whatever the costs are, they can pass them on plus 10% and no more.
So it's just so if I understand. So if somebody doesn't have a mortgage, property taxes increase 12%,
And then,
that would be considered a cost.
right, it would be the property taxes on their common property. Yes, absolutely. Well, you're the expert. What's considered as part of the cost of your annual? Your limited equity co-op can increase its rent.
Mhm.
And it can only increase if the amount of its actual costs go up plus 10%, right?
Not plus 10%.
No, just your actual costs. I'm sorry.
Actual costs, and the only way that it can go above that CPI is if you have infrastructure and capital improvements needed, so it has to go above that. It doesn't typically happen, and I just want to correct that. Most of the LECs try to stay under. But when you have capital improvements and you may have to take out a loan, that might increase it. But I'm not let's forget about the Senate bill for a minute. What's in this bill, the cap is so that
There is no cap
when
in this bill.
757, the manufactured home bill.
Yeah.
The reason for a cap is because in limited equity cooperatives, typically there's no renting from the person who owns that home.
But in our bill, it's just SBLE sees that this cap language is pertinent to. I'm saying I'm uncomfortable with expanding a cap to privatized communities. That's my
Yeah,
concern
it's,
that I just wanted to bring up. When we have a cap in another bill, that I will verbatim say the same thing. I wanted to bring that.
well, that's why I'm asking to address your concern. We decided to rephrase. I understand your concern. I just want to have this out. I understand your concern is, wait a minute, why should we adopt an arbitrary cap of whatever? When costs go up, they go up. It could be it could be property taxes, it could be capital needs, it could be whatever. My impression is that limited equity co-ops live with exactly that. That is, they have to limit their increases to their actual increases in their actual increases in cost. And I'm wondering whether that would address your concern. If we applied it beyond limited equity co-ops to anybody saying, you can't just increase the rent because you want to make more money because the market is higher.
I misunderstood our conversation and I thought you meant only mobile home communities
No,
that
no,
were private. It would affect mobile home communities that were private.
public are already covered by other law, and LECs are covered it.
Yeah.
And so it would affect private. But I'm just wondering if we use the same test, which is cost.
I think
We're
that's
talking
a
about a
question.
whole other bill right now, though. We're talking about landlord tenant.
No,
It's-
forget landlord tenant. She was using.
I'm saying that I
You're
will
saying if
also
we-
be saying that
Yeah.
when we discuss that, I think we have Cameron who is in the room and might be very well prepared or have some insight on whether or not property taxes would be considered cost if that language was in there.
The Senate language. Yeah, I can pull it up. It is. The. S34, so currently there is a process where the owners of manufactured homes in a manufactured home community. They can contest if the mobile home lot rent is above a certain amount. So if it's above CPI plus 1%, then they can contest that. There's a mediation process. If they can't get through mediation, it can ultimately be brought into court. What this bill proposes to do is put a hard cap on it to say it cannot be above CPI plus 1%. As far as what the mobile home lot rent includes, I'll double check. I don't think there's a definition, but if the property taxes go up, I don't see why a mobile manufactured home community park owner wouldn't pass those on to the individuals living there via the lot rent. I mean, I presume that's part of what the lot rent is supposed to pay for.
Yes, yes.
And that can only happen in the case of, let's say the taxes went up so high.
Which
Or-
we have.
Right. Or there's capital improvements needed, that it has to go above that cap. Then you're permitted to, I mean, people that live in the community can appeal, is it called appeal? Appeal it, because their lot rent then would be going up. What's in my bill has to do with people who are renting.
Yeah, that's
No, no,
completely
It's
different.
separate.
The question is, should we put S?
34.
In this bill.
Yes.
Yeah, that section.
I personally
Right,
have concerns. That's all I'm.
right. And so I was attempting to address your concerns by saying,
Appreciate that.
what if we didn't adopt the language in S34, but we used the idea that the cost, instead of a hard CPI plus 1, it was that costs could only go up to reflect actual costs. And that includes taxes, it includes capital costs, it includes everything.
So the only thing I'll jump in just to say for clarity purposes for the committee, the only thing that is specifically excluded from the lot rent, or I should say that can be charged separately, is for infrastructure improvements on the park. There is in a previous section, and I'm just trying to pull it up. The manufactured home community park owner who's charging the lot rent, they can have a separate charge that's associated with infrastructure improvement that goes away after that is paid off. So
Right, if there's a bond or something like that, yeah.
just making sure you're all aware that would be something.
I'm not surprised. I think that would have to be the case. Because if you're gonna issue bonds, then the community has to pay them off for however long the bonds are, yeah. And then Debbie, I'm sorry, Debbie, you're first.
I can't support this at all. I mean, I just feel like there's no reason for it. Because it's gonna take a natural life anyway. If you have a private mobile home, manufactured home, park, community, then, what are you gonna price yourself out of having renters? You're not gonna go that way. But you still need to have, X amount of dollars. You need to, pay all these other people that you have to pay. I mean, when you look at what, if you had to hire a plumber, for example, to do some work in there, if you've looked at their fees the last couple years, they've doubled, even tripled. So it's like, what are you gonna start listing every single thing that they can, it's just gonna, I just feel like it's gonna work out. That you don't have to put all this language in here. I just see it as not necessary.
Tom?
I believe the consumer price index is not necessarily include property taxes.
Doesn't.
And it's so localized in Vermont, depending on who's had an appraisal when and the common level of assessment, that at one community's tax change and the next municipality's tax change can be incredibly different. So I think actual cost or anything, but to echo Debbie's concern, if it's a private, somebody raises their rents too much, they lose business. I mean, it does kind of self-correct.
Yes.
I would just add that while that is true, our role is to ensure that when it is the more vulnerable person that is priced out and making way now for families that could easily afford the hike.
If the state is putting money in the game to keep it affordable, then it's reasonable to say that, okay, we need to all the players need to be on the same
Right, so
page.
benefiting from any infrastructure, tax backed or whatnot, infrastructure benefits, I would be more comfortable.
Other thoughts on this one issue? I mean, just to put this in context, because we've got to close here and move on. All we're talking about today is what he should put into language for us to consider. And what I see like 3 or 4 things we came up, and then one, which is generating disagreements inside the committee, and it's what we do with this language in the Senate bill. Are there any other thoughts about the Senate bill that anyone wants to
The
say?
Senate bill or our?
The Senate bill, which is being requested that we consider as part of it. Okay, I think it is premature. I have some question. I don't agree with some of what's said, but it doesn't matter. At this-
Oh, sorry. Wait, Mark.
Yes, yes,
What
go
Senate?
ahead.
What? Sorry, I was in the dentist. What Senate bill?
The Senate, this is a Senate bill that is Senator Clarkson's committee bill that has in it a rent control.
Their omnibus housing bill.
Right, and it
Oh,
has,
I did have an issue with that bill, but I don't know if now's the time to discuss it.
but it's not, the only thing she's asking is whether we would take up the part of the bill that has rent increase
Oh, okay.
limitation.
That's not the issue I had.
Okay, rent
Thanks.
increase limitations.
There's
I don't
another,
think-
I want to flag that there's another issue with that bill that there's something in it that I would like to discuss at some point.
Okay, although I don't even know if the bill will get to us.
Okay.
But
Crossover.
for now,
Figure it
Sorry.
out.
well, we'll see. I mean, we'll see. But for now, I don't think, although I have questions of council and would like to continue discussing this, I don't think there's enough of a consensus to ask you to draft anything.
Sure.
Okay. So he has his instructions and he'll come back to us with a bill with revised language in it. Okay? Yes.
I'd like to know how the committee feels about the definition. We have the definition of what a mobile home is, but we don't have the definition of what a mobile home park is, the statutory definition. So that's clear in the bill, is that's what we're referring to when it has to do.
Do you mean a limited equity cooperation mobile home community?
The definition of what a mobile home park is. That's,
So there's nothing in the bill as it's currently drafted that amends or changes any law respective to a mobile home park. My understanding of what you all have asked is there are provisions in the bill that address limited equity cooperatives. And you want to narrow that down to only impact limited equity cooperatives that are also manufactured home communities. And that's part of what I gotta draft up.
okay,
Is that term, which is what I think you're referring to,
Yes.
right? Yes, that is, I think that was the first thing you all asked me to change, so.
Okay. So, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Let's have you all.
No.
Cameron, you have your work set out for you with respect to this bill. And
I just can't wait for tomorrow afternoon.
we are, in fact, discussing this bill. We have more testimony coming up. And then at 1:20 PM tomorrow. No, that's different. Wait a minute, where
I
is
think you're
it?
taking this back up Friday morning.
Friday morning. You're taking it back up. Okay. Hopefully by then we'll be ready.
I hope you're ready for some side by sides for tomorrow.
So excited.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
I'm actually very excited to see how you pull this off.
Yeah, and in fact,
I'm very
in
excited.
fact, would you pass this down to him? This is a bill that somehow, probably by mistake, it deals with the same subject matter of, and it was somehow put across the hall.
I mean, it's a crime, so
Yeah, it's the same thing. Just so as you put together your show, you might want to mention this.
Do you want to add this in your side by side?
it's
It's not before us, but it's,
6 columns deep.
yeah. The
Make it
thing is,
7.
it's actually addressing an issue which I think our bill should address.
I love. It's actually that fun. It's the challenge is just trying to get it a format. It's not gonna. make
It's
you
it's
all-
bill number what, 728?
This is 728.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it now. We'll get into it tomorrow. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
So, yes, new language for this Friday morning.
Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you. We are now going to have an update on the Village Trust Initiative, which I hope includes what it is. Revealing my own ignorance. And we have two witnesses, Ben Doyle, and who's president of the Preservation Trust, and Nicole Grattan, who's an administrator of the Village Trust Initiative. Why don't you guys come together and just pull up a chair there and so you can both testify. Ben, I think you've been here and you know the committee, but Nicole does not. So commencing with Gail, would you introduce yourself to Nicole?
Gail Pezzo, Pittman 20, Colchester.
Mary Howard, and I represent Rutland City District 6.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Burrows and I represent Windsor 1, which is Heartland, West Windsor and Windsor.
Hi, Sadia Lamont, Loyal Washington District.
Mark Mahaly, and I represent Callis, Plainfield, and Marshfield.
Ashley Bartley, Fairfax, and LaGuardia, Georgia.
Entire Dodge, Essex Town, and City of Essex Township.
I'm Charlton, Athens, Chester, Grafton, and Wyndham.
Debbie Dalton, I represent St. Johnsbury, Concord, and Kirby.
Paul Grattan, I work for Preservation Trust of Vermont, lead the Village Trust Initiative.
And I'm Ben Doyle, President of Preservation Trust. It's nice to see many of you again. Thanks so much for having us. Representative Mahaly, we have a slideshow presentation. I can connect my computer or.
Doing this one, like I said,
Great, sorry, Zoom link, okay. Sorry.
Emily, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure,
Emily.
Emily Krasnow, South Burlington, Chittenden 9.
Sorry.
So the slide deck is on our page.
Sorry, I'm a former high school English teacher. And I'm having that flashback to PowerPoint working.
Yeah.
Accommodating the ninth graders.
Nothing's new under the sun. It just used to be that the slide projector didn't work.
While I've got those.
While you're looking.
Right.
That is. But it's always the light bulb.
Sorry.
The light bulbs would go.
Yeah.
Why we just like sit.
Yeah, I know, you just-
Preservation
Being
Trust.
brat. Okay,
Yes,
right.
worked on the Constitution House in Windsor, or would that be the Vermont Historical Society?
That's Division for Historic Preservation.
Okay.
So Laura Treishman is the state historic preservation.
Thank you. Exclusively?
To be honest, like the last year worked on 155 projects and we've been around for 40 years. So I bet we've worked on it, but I'm not familiar that we're currently working on it. I know that that division is actively working on that because it's a state historic site.
Thank you.
Are we doing?
Good, just pulling it up now, sorry.
Material. Out of the opinions. Yeah. And that they sent me a instruction and I sent me that. So it's this year.
Something's hard.
Thanks so much for your patience. Great, so as I said before, my name's Ben Doyle. I'm the president of Preservation Trust of Vermont. I have been before this committee before, really grateful to be here again. For just a quick reminder of who we are, Preservation Trust of Vermont is a nonprofit organization that's been around for almost 50 years. And our mission is to build community through the preservation of historic buildings, villages, and boundaries. basically, we help communities save the buildings that they love, places that are community gathering spaces, places that add to a sense of community in the town of Vermont. This is actually a map of where we worked in 2024. And you can see that we worked on 362 projects in 155 communities in lots of different ways. Some of this is field work, meaning like we get a call that says we have an old building in trouble. Can a field service representative like Nicole come down and tell us what to do with the building? It could be grants. We have a number of grants that we provide either through philanthropic funds, through family foundations, or often sub-granting funds through the federal government, through the National Park Service or Congressionally Directed Spending Awards. We also do special programs, including kind of downtown advocacy work. Really, I think one of the things that's really exciting about working at PTV is that we don't show up in a community with a list of grants and loans. We say, what do you need? What do you want to do in your community and how can we help? And then we use whatever resources we have or connections we have with other nonprofits or state agencies to try and help them do what they want to do. And today, we're going to talk specifically about one kind of initiative that we're working on called the Village Trust Initiative. And Nicole is the person who administers this program, and we'll get in a lot more detail about it. But I thought I would start by just talking a little bit about how this initiative came to be. So this is a picture of the Albany General Store as it used to be. For those of you that are not familiar with Albany, it's a small farming community up in the Northeast Kingdom, about 820 people. Pretty economically challenged, not too far from where Nicole lives and where I grew up. It's a pretty challenging place. And in 2013, this general store, which is really the business in downtown Albany, burned and was closed for at least 5 years. And I think the community immediately recognized a huge loss to their community in terms of vitality, economic activity, really a gathering place for people to come together. This is actually how I ended up working at the Preservation Trust. I used to work at USDA Rural Development, it's a federal agency that does economic development work. And the previous director of the Preservation Trust called me up and said, there's this great general store in Albany. Somebody's got to do something. And he was twisting every arm under the sun to make it happen. And so we were able to provide some funding through USDA Rural Development. But this project is very typical of what the Preservation Trust does. We worked on a lot of general store projects. And essentially what we see often is that a general store either is in danger of closing or will close because of market failures, that it's very difficult to compete and, in a retail environment in small town, rural America, when you're competing against dollar stores and other kind of online shopping, all kinds of reasons. And when there's a loss of that retail environment, there's a real loss of community and sense of place. And so the model that we've developed over 20 years is called a community supported enterprise, which is where we work with the community to identify a general store in trouble or that it's closed, help them form a nonprofit organization, what's called a community trust, that can purchase the real estate. And because they're a 501c3, they're eligible for different grants and loans and products, tax credits, different things that can help restore the property and basically renovate it in a way that you can do it with minimal debt. And it's these kind of stores are a lot like dairy farming, where there's really small margins, there's a lot of deferred maintenance. And then when there comes time for a generational turn, the next generation says, no way, I don't want to work 80 hours a week on something that needs this much money invested up front. And so this becomes a kind of market workaround where the nonprofit structure can own the real estate. And then that community trust doesn't run the store. They lease it to a private operator who wants to run a business, but doesn't have the capital to run the real estate. That makes sense. And so you're able to offer it through a triple net lease, meaning they cover the taxes, the insurance, and a basic maintenance rent, and it makes the business more viable than it would be otherwise. And so we've worked on over a dozen of these across Vermont, including Guilford, Putney, Albany, Elmore, East Calais, which I'll talk more about. Yes.
Have you worked in Orwell at the Buxton store?
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
We have a slide on. Yeah. I didn't know, but it's in here. So we've been doing this for about 20 years, this kind of model. And one of the things, well, let me continue the story with Albany. After about 5 years and $1 million, this is what the Albany General Store looks like today. And, it's really impressive for a community of this size to have a store like this that has prepared foods, that employs local kids, doing, running the counter, running the deli. It also has a community room where the community can come and gather. It's really now the kind of heart of their community. And I should also say that the Albany Community Trust, manages this real estate, but they've also done incredible work that they're working on a food pantry and back. They're taking on other kind of community projects. So what we saw was that in Vermont's smallest towns, the ability to do transformational economic development projects or community development projects was really limited. It's really the larger towns that have staff capacity that often pull down federal funding or can take advantage of the economic development programs in the state. And what we wanted to do was identify a new way of doing things that empowered local people.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I probably should know the answer to this. When you say smallest towns, do you only service towns with a specific
Yeah.
number of
No,
residents?
thank you for that
Okay.
question. We're across Vermont, every town in Vermont, everything from the Flynn Theater to the Albany
Okay,
General
okay.
Store. The initiative that we're talking about today, the Village Trust Initiative, is for communities, for villages
Okay,
of 2,500 or fewer.
perfect.
But that's just one program that we run. We'll work with anybody who has an old building. that
Okay,
needs-
perfect. I wanted to make sure I understood.
That's really great. Thank you. So what we noticed after years of doing this work is that projects like this one are extremely challenging. This is a pro forma, not for the Albany General Store, but for the East Calais General Store that Representative Mohali was deeply involved in and provided a lot of leadership on. What you'll see is that this project had 27 different funding sources. For a small town, a volunteer board to navigate 27 different funding sources, to weave that all together and manage the project is extremely challenging. They were able to do it in East Calais because of exceptional leadership and expertise, but your average community in Vermont, it's not that easy. And so what we said is, look, we've been doing this for a long time. We've seen that this model works, but how do we do more of it? How do we accelerate it? And how do we leave capacity behind, right? How do we help people learn how to do these kinds of projects so that once they've renovated the general store, they can move on to the next one? I should also say okay, so now I'm getting to it. The Preservation Trust of Vermont has had a really long and important relationship with Senator Leahy, who was deeply committed to, downtown revitalization and historic preservation. And so as he was leaving office, he said, I really want you to think about something that will leave a lasting legacy. And we work very closely with Vermont Council on Rural Development, who you might know that they're a nonpartisan facilitator of public policy in Vermont. They help communities have conversations about who they want to be or what projects or priorities they want to work on. And then we also work closely with Vermont Community Foundation, which is the state's largest philanthropic organization. The three organizations got together and said, how could we take this kind of work and do more of it, be more impactful, and work collaboratively to do it? And in that sense, all of us doing the things that we do best. So the Vermont Council can help a community vision what they want to see happen in their community. Preservation Trust can help them use the building to achieve that vision. And the Community Foundation can help leverage philanthropic resources, both locally and regionally, to help fund the vision. And so with that, we asked Senator Leahy to support this through a congressionally directed spending award. And we were lucky enough to receive $10 million to do this kind of work in 20 villages of 2,500 or fewer over the next 7 years. And that's what we're here to talk about today, the Village Trust Initiative. And with that, I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Nicole, who actually runs this program.
So Ben kind of gave you the introduction. The Village Trust Initiative is the goal of supporting these 20 communities throughout the state of Vermont over the next few years. And the real piece is that building up of a local nonprofit that can usher these projects forward. The idea is that once you have a group that has decided what they want to do and they care deeply and they have a skill set that we're going to support them with, they can take on this first project with the hope that they can take on future projects that are going to support their community. This is a picture of Irisburg, very close to where I live, and just a great example of a small village that has like these basic infrastructure pieces. Many of them are dated, many of them need support and help, and that's kind of what we kind of stepped in to do. So as Ben shared, this is a tri-organization effort with PTV, the Preservation Trust of Vermont, Vermont Council on Rural Development, and the Vermont Community Foundation. And what we do is we start with people. I love that I work for PTV, and our mission is to build community through historic preservation, because without people, you really can't make this happen. So my colleague, Keziah Haviland at BCRD, kind of leads up this community engagement effort to really get a heartbeat on the community. What is it that they're needing? What is it they're wanting? What is it they're hoping for? It's done in many different ways. It might be a pop-up farmer's market on the Benson Village Green to kind of demonstrate that there's a need for food here. It can be this young child in Wolfgate writing down that he wants a playground behind the town offices. Or it can be these two women in Greensboro Bend talking about the future of Greensboro Bend and the need for housing. All while that's happening, of gathering up community vision, we're supporting that group to become its own nonprofit. So everything from filing with the Secretary of State to building bylaws, getting an EIN, filing with the federal government for a 501c3, all this behind the scenes work happens. At that point, we can start to look at the buildings themselves. And as Ben shared, a lot of them have incredible deferred maintenance. These are buildings that have stumbled along the way, and these groups are looking to pick them up. So PTV kind of steps in to say, what's happening in this building? What's happening with the water, wastewater? How is it doing structurally? What are you hoping to do here? And can that use fit these buildings? We bring in environmental professionals to help us understand what's happening with lead, asbestos, PCBs, everything. So we really call on a lot of partners to kind of help paint this picture of what we need to do to kind of revitalize this building and make it a new functional community gathering space in whatever way that the community decides. So in 2024, we took on 7 communities. It was Lunenburg, Wolcott, Greensboro Bend, West Fairleigh, Braintree, Benson, and Reading. Those are the dark blue ones. And then just this past fall, we took on 5 more, which is Belvedere, New Haven, Orwell, Sharon, and oh gosh, I'm missing one. Rupert is blocked. So these are our 12 communities that we have so far. And again, in the next handful of years, we'll be taking on 8 more to round out our 20 community program. And we are looking for many different things as we select these communities, but geographical spread is definitely a key component to make sure that we're reaching all of Vermont and not just focusing on one area.
So a couple of questions.
Yeah.
By the way, for the, yeah, I did spend 3 years of my life on this process. But I want to drill down a little on exactly what the Village Trust Initiative would provide a community. In our case, I mean, what they said is so true. There's just no way in hell that almost any skill set would allow you to put together a funding stack that would work for these programs. So the very first thing that we had to do was to get some sort of consultant on board who was a development consultant who really knew all the grants that were out there and what their limitations were and what their work was. Liz Curry. And we got a READY grant from VHCB to begin the process of paying for Liz. In other words, you sort of have to and we raised a little money and have to bootstrap your way into it. She got us our first grant. So then we were able to hire architects, engineers, all these other people. So which of those things are you saying you would pay for?
We pay for all of it. So of the $10 million that we have, we've set aside $6 million for each community to use, both for construction and for pre-development soft costs. And then the other part is all the
Did you say construction?
Implementation, yes. So
it's both pre-development and construction.
yes,
Though obviously you'd want to leverage, right?
correct.
And we'll show examples of that, but the way that I really like to think about this is my wife's a social worker. And she talks about the idea of wraparound services.
Right, yes.
That's what this is. It's for a small town that needs wraparound services. So we don't just show up and say, here's the grant, figure out how to use it. We show up and say, what do you want to do with this building? Oh, you're going to need a wastewater analysis. You're going to need an architect. You're going to need an engineer. You're going to need an attorney. And by the way, we have all of those ready to go for you. So you don't have to look for them. We'll bring them to you and they're paid for. And it just accelerates everything And I think actually, if I could just pontificate for one more second, I kind of buried the lead on why we're doing this. Is that we're doing this because we actually believe, like when Kevin Chu talks about like 802,000 people coming to, like, we believe in that at the Preservation Trust. Like our goal is to preserve the future of Vermont, and we believe that that includes more people. And we believe that people will go to communities like Belvedere if they have a place to gather, meet their neighbors, feel like they're part of a community. If you go to a town that's just a bedroom community of, and there's no sense of connection, you're not going to get young families moving there. You're not going to have the same sense of community. And that's really what this is about, is saying there are wonderful things happening in Chittenden County, and that's great. We want to support that. But we also want to see what economic development looks like in Vermont's smallest towns and have people want to move there. And so that's kind of what this is about, is if you're in Cabot and you know that you can go to Harry's Hardware to buy hardware and get a beer, that's a motivator to live there.
Do you also include organizational advice for the trust itself? That is for the like how you find volunteers, what it takes to run a good meeting, all that stuff. Well, I can't think of any other way than to say I have one sort of doubter question. In other realms, I've seen a situation where a wonderful set of things happens. And then people try to turn it into a program. And it's not so wonderful anymore. Because the reason the wonderful thing happened, because people took the initiative. And it was really hard. And so in order to make it work, they had to kill themselves. And so it self-selects the really great stories. Whereas if you turn it into a program, aren't you worried that you'll make it too easy with your wraparound services and you'll get groups that aren't so great?
Could be a form of job security. No, I do think that the work that we're doing is showing, and I think this has been a big work that Vermont Council on Rural Development is doing with like that board structure. Like if you only have a board of 3 people and all that work falls on the 3, yes, you're going to get a self-selection of the groups that can rise up and fight through. But with this program, we're really showing like, hey, you need a group that focuses on the building. You need a committee that's focusing on community engagement. You need a building that's focusing on the capital campaign. And within that, you're starting to diversify the amount of work that any one person is holding with the hope and the goal of having the whole thing rise up. Some of the work that we're doing is affording long-term longevity.
And these projects, this program is not a panacea. Like these projects, we're bringing, I think, pretty fantastic resources to the table, thanks to Senator Leahy's vision and generosity. It's a leg up, right? It's a helping hand, but it's not these folks have enormous work to do and years of work ahead of them, and it's extremely, extremely challenging. And do you want to breeze through some of these examples so they can see the kind of projects in action?
So this is Woolkit, and they were featured in our annual report. So I picked pictures that really just kind of showed you the people. Like these are 4 women that were at the photo shoot. The Woolkit train depot is there. You can see the kiosk that's right along the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. Behind, on the other side of them would be where the town offices are. And then behind that is kind of where the schoolhouse is. But this is a community that has been thinking about this project since 2012. I actually spoke with Caitlin Corkins at the division, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that this is finally moving along. This is a community that has been thinking and planning, and they've done municipal planning grants to help move them along. And they really needed this big effort to kind of coalesce their community to bring this forth. So with Vermont Council on Rural Development in June, they held their first community engagement effort. And so there's the train depot in the back, and again, the schoolhouse is over to the left, and so is the town offices. And this was one of my favorite events that we had. People poured out of the woodwork for this. They got enough pizza for maybe 50, and they had to go back 2 times because so many people showed up. We lucked out with a great day, but I think this just speaks to the desire of our communities to have places that they can gather and that they want these things in their spaces. This picture is in here just to show you the multi-generational aspect to these projects. You have everyone from school children writing down what they hope to see in their community to two longtime friends at the front enjoying food and talking about what they hope for their community. Oops, save that one. It's just another poker. I'll show it. So this is the work of Vermont Council on Rural Development. So they put forth all these questions to gather really good input from community members. So here they were asking questions about what you think you would like to do here, what are things your community is missing or needing, what would you like to see augmented? So people weigh in, and that all guides the design of what we hope to do in their buildings. This is the Gilman Middle School located in Lunenburg, Vermont. And I just want to share a few statistics about Gilman. So Gilman, here's the big building. So the white building is the oldest part. It was built in 1923. The gymnasium was added on in 1950. And then the newest wing of the building, where a child care center Head Start program runs, was built in 1993. Gilman is an unincorporated village within the town of Lunenburg. The median household income there is $45,000. The poverty rate in Gilman is anywhere between 24 and 45%, with the rest of Essex County coming in around 14, and the rest of Vermont coming in around 9 or 10. So this is a community that has been on decline for a very long time with the closing of the paper mill. It's really quite stagnated, and this is the project that this community has selected to kind of revitalize and bring forth some new life. So the goal here is to have the white old schoolhouse become 4 housing units. The gymnasium, we just got cleared that people can go in it, that the PCBs are okay. So they're going to be hosting different events. They put out a application to have pickleball materials come, so they're going to be holding pickleball things. But this is one of the largest meeting places in all of Essex County, and this community can now be using it for the Gingerbread Bazaar or the Maple Fest that they have. They hope to retain the childcare space at the back of the building, and then there's additional spaces for other community use. This is Reading, Vermont, and this is the Reading Grange. It's also called the Little Hall or the Little Universalist Hall. Interestingly, this building was moved here in 1902. It actually was in South Reading before it got put here. And Brian Edwards, an architect that we worked with. Ryan Edwards, an architect that we work with, he went in and did a conditions assessment and said it's kind of like a pretty ho-hum building, except for this grand hall up on the second floor. So you see Brian Calley and Jack Kirsch here from Reading, and these are 2 members of their community trust that are looking to revitalize this building. They hope to use the ground floor as gathering space and like a little kitchenette kind of thing, so they can have community dinners and then have other art functions upstairs. This community is really interesting because they have the Hall Art Foundation, and so they've been able to make some really interesting partnerships in this project.
Yes.
I live right next door in Brownsville. And so are you familiar with this project? Are you familiar with Reading?
Yes, I'm working in Reading right now.
Okay, so what would make this different from the recent restoration of the Reading Town Hall? I mean, that's, I guess, because they look and the functions that you're describing are almost completely identical and they are really close to each other. And so
Why?
why,
Good question.
why?
So this group is definitely taking those things into consideration. So the town hall is there. Unfortunately, the upstairs is not accessible at all. And so they're,
This wouldn't be either, according to your
yep, so they're going to be working to make it accessible so that there would be a lift so that people could be getting up into this space. But they're thinking very conscientiously about not pulling away from other resources in this community. So if Robinson Hall above Town Hall is the better space to have a big movie night or something like that, this group did not want to like step on those toes. And that's why they're thinking of this actually being more aligned with arts of like the Hall Art Foundation type thing. Maybe having this be like an artist in residence studio, but they're definitely thinking about the other buildings in their village to make sure that they're not duplicating in a very small place.
And just out of curiosity, is that the Reading Forward people? Like the Reading in the Future or whatever it's called?
No, this is the Reading Community Trust, and the Future is Reading is a group that they are partnering with, and I think that that group is more focused on like community events.
Okay, thank you.
So there it is from the outside in all its glory. We love good fixer-uppers. I definitely wanted to put in one that was a church, because throughout Vermont, we have churches that are transitioning or have completely transitioned into something different. So this is the Sharon Congregational Church, and they are actually partnering with the congregation, there's still a congregation there, to start to use this building in new ways. So before PTV and the Village Trust Initiative came around, they actually daylighted these back windows. So these are no longer opaque. They're just white, clear. So that when you go in, it doesn't feel as sanctuary-esque. It's more of just like big, bright space. So the congregation has really been amenable to like reusing their spaces for other things while still maintaining their home. A big challenge in lots of our churches is accessibility. And so this is actually an accessible entrance where it's a paved walkway from a parking lot that comes up. But as you can see, there's many different thresholds, different floor heights, narrow doorways, really tight spaces. So this group is really looking to make sure that anyone can get into this building and use what they have. This is a very vibrant group. I have no doubt that they will have things happening all the time. We just need to make sure people. And then last but not least is the Orwell General Store. So this is one of our newer projects, and it is a project. We have a report on this building, and the engineer that went in said, the only thing that is interesting historically about this building is that it is old. So that just gives you a little snippet of like the work that needs to happen here. But this is a beloved part of Orwell. If you haven't had one of their sandwiches back in the day, they were very, very good. When we came into town, we were met with this very warm reception. They had probably 50 people on their village green. The Historical Society had displays at the back, and they had this wonderful potluck. And I actually looked back, but this community does this quite a bit. They really do gather. The reason that we picked the Orwell General Store is something that Ben coined the vitality quotient of just general stores are the heart of many of our communities. They have those small, frequent, informal interactions that really keep people connected. And so the Orwell General Store will probably be a very phased project, given its needs, but it's a place that the community is really going to be rallying around to make sure it's future.
I should take this next one if that's all right. And so I just want to going back to the very beginning of how we're thinking of this program working, it doesn't come, there's not enough money. It's a lot of money. It's not enough money to do all of these projects. It's really, when we think about projects, typically we think about a three-legged stool that is local philanthropic funding, state funding, like things like the tax credit program, which is enormously important, and then federal funding, whether that's Northern Borders Regional Commission, USDA Rural Development, special congressionally directed spending. But this is kind of like what we see as kind of the different legs of the stool. Right, and we envision the Village Trust Initiative, really, if we're talking about $1 million project, that this comes in at, 25 to 30%, one leg of the stool, but it's a lot better than 27 different funding sources, right? It's again, really trying to accelerate and say, here's confidence in this program, in this project, that then attracts and aggregates other funding. And I think we'll actually might be back in a few weeks for VHCD Day to talk about the really important role that VHCD has played in a number of these projects. But that's just kind of like one example of another leg of the stool of where it comes in. And with that, I think we just really wanted to share this with you because of the important work that you're doing for rural Vermont, and just to say, as my predecessor always used to say, that this kind of work, preservation or community development, is a real team sport. And, we're just like one part of a team. And really appreciate all the work that you do to kind of help facilitate this kind of work for rural Vermont, which is just really so needed for the future.
Barry.
I am so happy that you have taken on the Buxton store. My husband grew up in Orwell, and his dad was the country doctor. His house, I believe, is the second house, the white one. I can't remember if it was the blue one or the white one in the photo. And I remember the first time I went to Orwell, I'm city girl, I'm from Connecticut. And my husband showed me, he said to me, do you want to go to the mall? And I said, oh, sure. So we go to Orwell. And here's the bank, and here's the sign that says the bank. The school that he went to was across the street. The post office is right up there, and I think there may have been a little gas station, and then
I
there's,
wish I'd met your husband.
oh my God. Buxton's was just, they had anything and everything. And when we purchased, my father-in-law had a camp at Lake Sunrise and was the doctor for the Boy Scout camp. And we purchased his camp, and when a neighbor of mine was coming to visit us, we had given her directions, but she stopped in Buxton's and she said to the owner there, do you know where the Howards live? And he said, oh, yeah. And he told her, and he said, actually, they were in this morning. They bought steaks, hot dogs. Their granddaughter served in the House of Representatives. And when they sold to out-of-staters, the out-of-staters sold to the Sun. And when we heard that they were closing, we were upset, really upset. The fact my son called the granddaughter to say, how can we help? What can we do? And I found out that a number of the residents got together because they just couldn't see this store closing. I mean, it just was an amazing place. And the people in Orwell they just couldn't be any nicer. So I'm so happy to hear that. When will it be done?
That really depends on the success of the capital campaign, but we'll see. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes,
And so you have 8 more spots open. But they have to be in a kind of scattershot. Right? Or
Our goal is to have a project in every county.
just one in every county?
Like, yeah, not necessarily. I mean,
Lamoille has 2, we have both Wolcott and Belvedere right now, so there are counties that will have more than one.
questions? Well, first of all, yes, Mary.
You had a picture of a church in your information here. I've heard it's very difficult to remodel a church. And I'm thinking particularly of a Catholic church because they have the high ceilings and the stained glass windows. Is that true?
I think maybe I said this last time I was here, but like sometimes when I go to church, I often sit there thinking, how do you turn this into a portable house? That's a big mess. But it is very challenging. I will say, actually, the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance, which is our kind of counterpart in New Hampshire, they've actually put out a really great book with like different architectural designs of like what could it look like. I mean, to be honest, from a true preservation point of view, you really want to preserve the expanse of the sanctuary, but the reality is we have a lot of churches that, with dwindling congregations. And so the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance has done some really great work showing like architectural designs of the kind of vernacular that we have in Vermont of what could it look like to split those into potential housing units. Certainly the larger churches are more challenging. They have, there's a really great example of a Catholic church in Concord, New Hampshire, one of those really large ones that was turned into condominiums, but not particularly affordable, right? Like a higher end market rate housing, which is a long way of saying it's possible, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Because we have a church that has been emptied for a few years. And they did take what was the school and made it into beautiful, affordable housing.
You're talking about Lincoln.
Yes, I am.
That's a fantastic.
Yes,
Yeah.
I toured there. that building. It's really, really nice.
Yeah.
And the location is great.
It's a fantastic
Joe's
project.
Donuts right there. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, it's great. But I was told that in a church, you have to take down the stained glass windows. I don't know where you put them, but as part of the renovation or whatever, you.
Well, when they're, the churches, typically the Catholic Church is a
Yeah.
process of desanctification, which includes the removal of any kind of religious iconography, including potentially stained glass. So
So
it's-
you know about Immaculate Heart.
You
Okay. Thank you.
To each one of the properties, do you keep childcare in mind? I noticed the first one you showed us.
Yes, so again, we're definitely going into communities to ask like what do they want, and in Lunenburg, Gilman, they were very clear, like the childcare needs to be a part of this project, we want that to be maintained. In Sharon, we're just starting off, or wasn't Journey Store, but other communities, like if there is a desire to have that, then we will be working with them to make that possible. Belvedere is a former school, not very old, 1993. But it's outfitted to have young people in there. It's got a nice little, short little everything. So if that community decides that childcare is a fitting piece for them, then we can support them in doing that.
really want to be cognizant of your time, that at the end of the day, you had a long one, but really so grateful for your leadership. And if there's anything that we can do to support kind of your communities, that's, people just call us and say, we have an old building in trouble, so feel free to do that.
Where were you when I needed you? They were there, just in a different form. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen on the committee, tomorrow is a big day. I apologize in advance for the fact that we have overlapping bills. It's just part of what's going on, that we can't just do one bill at a time. Tomorrow, the Department of Housing and Community Development is coming before us to talk about what they're doing, be up their budget. Then they're also going to testify on 775. That is the rural finance piece. Then we're going to switch back to manufactured home and take some testimony tomorrow. Yes.
I thought you said you were gonna move until Friday because you knew I wasn't gonna be here.
Oh, yeah, okay, great. And then we're going to begin the process of introducing or talking about the bills that are before us on landlord tenant. Saudi and Debbie will be presenting. And then we're gonna have council walk us through a comparison of the bills that are before us, sort of by subject area. All in one day before the 3:30 floor. So it's a big day. It starts at 9 o'clock.
Shall I bring Red Bull for the committee?
Yeah.